All right, welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we try to sift through all that noise, all the research and insight out there.
And boil it down.
And boil it down to what you really need. We cut through the clutter so you don't have to.
And if you're here with us today, you probably get it.
You know that struggle of modern life? It's that constant hum from your phone, right?
Oh, yeah.
That sort of low-grade anxiety that just follows you around after you've been scrolling for an hour.
And you're looking for something, for some kind of motivation, but nothing sticks.
Exactly. You search, you scroll, but when the phone goes dark, what are you left with? The source we're looking at today calls it digital dust, which I think is just perfect.
Digital dust, I love that. And that feeling, that kind of chronic weariness is exactly what we're digging into today.
Mm-hmm.
We've got this fascinating source material. It's a faith-based devotional guide, but it claims to go way beyond just, a temporary pep talk.
Mm-hmm.
It talks about tapping into a genuine, inexhaustible power source. And our mission for this deep dive is really, really specific. We're not just giving you the highlights. We are looking for a complete system.
A blueprint.
A blueprint, a repeatable method you can use to apply these, ancient promises to the very real stresses of your 21st century life. The goal here is breakthrough, real inspiration.
And the whole thing, the entire architecture of this system, it really hinges on one big shift in thinking.
It's a huge one.
It's moving from just reading the Bible to actively praying the Bible. The source argues that this is the actual mechanism, the thing that turns a historical promise on a page into a personal power source you can use every single day.
So let's get into it. Let's unpack that blueprint, because it all starts with this idea of changing how you even talk to God. It's about desire versus declaration.
Okay, so this first pillar of the system, it's about changing your entire posture. The guide says you have to stop just, passively reading the text and start actively praying it back. That's a pretty dramatic shift, isn't it? It's a total game changer. It takes you from being a student in a library to an active participant on a spiritual battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
The guide makes this really sharp distinction between what it calls human petition and divine declaration. A human petition is usually based in our own uncertainty. God, I really hope things get better. Or,
please just help me survive this week. I've been there.
We all have. But that posture, it relies on your own strength, your limited ability to just hang on.
And that is exhausting. I mean, if all I've got is my own hope, that well is going to run dry pretty fast, especially when things get really bad.
Precisely. But the shift happens when you start praying God's word back to him. At that point, you step out of just hoping and you step into declaring.
Okay, what does that mean exactly, declaring?
It means you're praying his perfect, established will. The guide uses this incredible analogy. It says you're basically acting like a lawyer in a courtroom, confidently holding God to his own signed, written promise.
So it's not based on my fragile hope anymore? No, it's based on his unshakable faithfulness. You're leveraging his promise, not your performance.
That is a powerful concept. You're shifting the whole thing from a desperate plea to, like you said, a legal assertion based on a contract that's already been signed.
Exactly.
And the source uses a perfect example to anchor this idea. It's a verse a lot of people probably know, Psalm 30, verse 5 from the King James Version.
Oh, it's the ultimate promise for anyone going through a hard time. It says, "Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning."
Now here's where we need to go a little deeper, because, we've all heard that verse, maybe it's on a coffee mug somewhere.
Right.
But the source material says you have to understand the context of the night. It's not just talking about sundown to sunrise.
No, it's your personal night.
Your personal night. It's that anxiety that wakes you up at 3 a.m. It's that grief that just won't lift. It's that financial pressure that feels like a physical weight on your chest. That's the night.
And that's the key. You have to identify your night. And then, the guide says, the breakthrough comes when you stop treating that verse like a nice little poem.
And start treating it like a binding legal declaration.
Yes, a literal, immediate declaration over your situation.
Okay, but let me push back on that for a second, because I know someone listening is thinking this. How is that really any different from, positive thinking, or manifesting, or just repeating some self-help mantra over and over?
That's a great question, and it's the absolute core difference the source points out. Positive thinking is all about your power, your ability to rewire your own brain. It's drawing from the finite, very limited well of your own willpower.
And we know how that ends, burnout.
Always. But declaration in this context draws power from an infinite source. And the specific prayer example the guide gives, it just illustrates this shift so beautifully.
Can you walk us through that declaration?
Yeah. So instead of just hoping, you affirm, and this is a quote, that this season of sorrow is not my permanent address.
I love that phrasing. It's a temporary location, not my forever home. It's so witty, almost.
It's brilliant. It immediately frames the suffering as temporary. And then the prayer continues with the actual declaration. I declare that J-joy is coming in my morning.
So you're not just hoping for it, you're announcing its arrival.
You're announcing its arrival because it's already been promised. The source really hammers this home. The power comes alive the moment you speak God's promise back to him.
Yeah.
You're not trying to will joy into existence from nothing.
No.
You are asserting that joy is the guaranteed, promised outcome. Why? Because of the character of the one who made the promise.
So the power isn't in how loud I say it or how emotional I feel when I say it.
Not at all.
The power is in the word itself. It shifts the entire burden off of my shoulders.
That's it right there. It shifts the burden. If we have to generate our own joy, if we have to overcome our own anxiety, we will fail. We'll just hit a wall of human fatigue. Nobody can sustain that kind of optimism through a year-long crisis. But by declaring the word, you're essentially handing the responsibility for the outcome back to the one who made the promise.
Yep.
You're taking an infinite power source and aiming it directly at your finite problem.
Whether that's debt or despair or...
So just being tired of the digital dust.
Okay.
It applies to everything. And that is the genius of this first pillar.
Okay, so the starting line is bold declaration. That's clear. But let's get real for a minute.
Okay.
You make the declaration, you pray Psalm 30.5, you feel good for a minute. Then you wake up the next morning, and the night is still there. The anxiety is still crushing you. The bank account still has the same number in it.
Yes, the Red Sea hasn't parted.
Right. What happens in that long, dark hallway between the promise and the fulfillment? What do you do then?
And that, right there, that experience of waiting, that's what separates a temporary motivational high from a sustainable spiritual system. And it leads us straight into the second, absolutely critical part of this blueprint.
Which the source calls
holding to an unchanging hand. The guide is incredibly honest about this. It says the challenge of that long night is universal. You will pray, you will declare, and you will often not feel it right away.
So what's the answer? Just declare louder, try harder.
No, exactly the opposite. The answer isn't to try harder in your own strength. It's to maintain unwavering trust and rush. This is the key. To obey. To obey what is often a very strange, illogical instruction, even when every part of you wants to do something else.
So we're moving from just believing something to actively doing something, even if that something feels weird.
Or even counterproductive. And the guide gives us two massive biblical case studies to show what this looks like in practice. Let's start with the big one. Moses at the Red Sea. I mean, it is the ultimate picture of being trapped.
It really is. I mean, paint that picture for us. This isn't just a minor problem.
No, this is the climax of the whole story. They've just escaped Egypt. They've walked across the desert. They think they're finally free, and then they turn around.
And they see dust on the horizon.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not just any army. It's Pharaoh's elite chariot corps. The most advanced, terrifying military machine of its day, and they are coming for revenge.
And then in front of them,
just water. The vast, uncrossable Red Sea, and there are mountains on either side. It's a dead end, a perfect trap. The source calls it a total panic scenario.
Which is an understatement. If that happened today, every rational advisor, every military strategist would be screaming, do something, build rafts, fight back, surrender, anything but just standing there.
But the instruction that Moses gives to the people, who are absolutely terrified, is completely counterintuitive. It's just wild.
It's in Exodus chapter 14.
Verses 13 and 14. Moses says, fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. The Lord shall fight for you.
Stand still. I mean, that almost sounds like a cruel joke in that situation. It goes against every single human survival instinct we have.
And the source says that command is the very definition of holding to an unchanging hand, standing still in the face of the impossible.
Okay, so the takeaway for someone listening. If you're facing what feels like an economic dead end, or a relationship that's collapsed, or a health diagnosis that feels like a trap,
the first act of obedience might be to stop your own frantic, panicked strategizing. To stand still and let the Lord fight the battle. It's a surrender of your strategy, because your strategy isn't working anyway.
I can see the power in that, in just letting go. But then the guide immediately pivots to a completely different story, a story that involves constant action, marching.
Yes.
This is the Joshua and the wall of Jericho. So how do we square that? On one hand, the instruction is stand still, and on the other, it's start marching. That feels like a contradiction.
And that's the beauty of it. It shows that obedience isn't one specific action.
Yeah.
It's about aligning yourself with God's specific strategy for that specific moment, even if it seems to contradict what worked before.
Okay.
With Moses, the barrier was natural, the sea. But at Jericho, the barrier was man-made. It was a massive, fortified, impenetrable wall, specifically engineered to withstand any attack.
So a different kind of problem requires a different kind of strategy.
A different, and in this case, even stranger strategy. If you thought stand still was weird.
God's plan for Jericho was, from a military perspective, completely insane.
Utterly bizarre. You got this giant, thick wall, and the divine strategy isn't siege towers or battering rams, it's silent marching.
Silent marching, blowing some trumpets, and then eventually shouting.
Right. The source points out that the sheer ridiculousness of the command is what makes the story so powerful. Imagine being one of those soldiers. You have to march around this massive city day after day for a week in total silence.
Knowing that the enemy soldiers on the wall are watching you, probably laughing at you.
Thinking you've completely lost your minds. It would have required incredible discipline, incredible trust, just performing this seemingly pointless ritual day in and day out.
And the guide calls this a strange strategy.
Because it is. It underlines this fundamental truth of the system.
Right.
Your breakthrough is tied to your obedience to God's specific instruction. Especially when that instruction makes no logical sense, when it contradicts your pride or your sense of efficiency. The task wasn't about military might.
It was about faith.
It was a testimonial, a public demonstration of trust.
And the result, I mean, the Bible says it so simply in Joshua chapter 6, the wall fell down flat.
Not crumbled, not breached, flat. A sudden, total, catastrophic failure of the structure.
So let's connect these two stories for the listener.
Okay, the insight is really twofold. Declaration praying the word is what sets your expectation for victory. But it's obedience that carves the path to get there.
And that obedience might look like radical patience, like Moses standing still.
Or it might look like radical, repetitive, seemingly nonsensical action, like Joshua marching around a wall.
So your job isn't to figure out how it's going to happen.
No. Your job is not to be the strategist. Your job is simply to hold on to his hand and follow the next instruction, no matter how counterintuitive it feels. When you surrender your own need to understand the how, that's where the breakthrough is found.
That's a powerful combination. Bold declaration plus committed, trusting obedience. But that kind of commitment, man, that takes a lot of energy, a lot of internal reserves.
It does.
When you're tired and the instructions don't make sense, where does that strength, that inspiration to keep going even come from? You need a power source. You need a connection.
That's exactly right. And that's where we go next. We shift from focusing on the external barriers, the seas and the walls, to the internal connection that fuels the entire process. The guide is very practical. It acknowledges that sometimes inspiration just feels a million miles away. You feel cut off, isolated.
Which is easy to feel in our world, right? We're more connected than ever with our devices, but we often feel more alone.
Totally. And to speak to that feeling of deep, profound distance, the source takes us to the story of Jacob.
And Jacob's situation, I mean, if you want a picture of hitting rock bottom, that's it.
Absolutely. He's on the run. His brother Esau wants to kill him. He's alone in the wilderness, no protection, no support system. The source describes him literally sleeping on a stone.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Physically, emotionally, spiritually, he is just completely tapped out.
And it's in that moment of total desolation, when he's at his absolute lowest, that he has this incredible, life-altering dream, the dream of the ladder.
It's in Genesis chapter 28. It's this vision of a ladder propped up on the earth, but the top of it is reaching all the way into heaven.
And angels are going up and down on it.
Mhm.
The Lord is standing at the top, and he says to Jacob, I am with thee.
It's such a literal picture of connection, isn't it? It's bridging that huge gap between the hard, messy reality on the ground, the stone pillow, and the divine power of heaven.
And the source material says this ladder of connection isn't just a one-time dream for an ancient patriarch. It's a symbolic blueprint for us.
Oh,
It's a picture of Jesus. The guide is very clear on this. He is the living link, the ladder, the only connection through which inspiration and strength and divine power flows from the Father down to us.
even when we feel like we're sleeping on our own cold, hard stone.
Especially then.
So for the listener who's dealing with, say, a major creative block at work or just total burnout, or they feel like their inspiration is gone, this is a huge shift.
It's the total reframe.
The takeaway is that you don't have to try and manufacture that inspiration from inside yourself. Your genius, your next great idea, your strength to get through the day, it doesn't come from some hidden well of self-help you have to dig for.
No, it descends. It's a download from God through that connection that's already been established.
So the focus changes. It's less about self-improvement and more about channel maintenance.
Perfect way to put it. You're not striving, you're connecting. You prioritize just getting into his presence or even just acknowledging it for a moment, and you open yourself up to receive what you need through that flow.
Okay, so once that connection is established, the guide doesn't just say, okay, great, you're connected. It encourages a step that feels incredibly bold.
That's audacious.
It says it's not enough to just be connected. You should be hungry for more. And this is where the story of Elisha comes in, and it really challenges our tendency to settle.
Elisha's story is amazing. He was the apprentice, right? He trained under the great prophet Elijah, a man whose ministry was just fire and miracles and intensity.
A tough act to follow.
A very tough act to follow. Elisha was competent. He was capable. He could have just aimed to be, Elijah 2.0. But the source points to what it calls his bold hunger. He had this insatiable desire for more, not just to succeed his master, but to exceed him in spiritual capacity.
He wasn't aiming for good enough, he was aiming for abundance. And his request, it's recorded in 2 Kings, and it's just stunning in its boldness.
It really is. As Elijah is about to be taken up to heaven, he turns to Elisha and says, "Ask what I shall do for you." And Elisha doesn't hesitate. He cries out, "I pray thee, let a double portion of thy spirit be upon me."
A double portion.
Just think about that. He's not asking for Elijah's cloak or his title. He is asking for twice the power, twice the anointing, twice the spiritual capacity of a living legend.
Most of us would be afraid to ask for something like that. We'd feel like it was arrogant or greedy.
Exactly. But the guide uses this story to give us this incredibly freeing piece of encouragement. God is not offended by your hunger.
He's not put off when you ask for more than you think you can handle.
Or more than you think you deserve. He invites it. This is a direct challenge to our habit of praying small prayers.
So if you're facing a mountain of debt, you shouldn't just ask for enough to scrape by this month.
You should ask for a double portion of financial wisdom, of favor, of provision.
If you need to forgive someone who really, really hurt you, you don't just ask for a little bit of patience.
You ask for a double portion of grace and the strength to let it go.
This changes everything. It's about moving out of a survival mentality and into an abundance mentality.
Yes, it takes the connection from Jacob's ladder and then injects it with this proactive, bold request for more. It trains you to approach your day, not with fear of what you might lose, but with eager expectation of the double portion of his spirit, of his inspiration, of his strength that you're going to receive.
Wow. Okay, so we have the components now. We have declaration from Psalm 30. We have the commitment to obedience from Moses and Joshua. We have the foundational connection with Jacob's ladder. And we have the pursuit of greater capacity through Elisha's bold hunger.
We've covered the principles.
We've moved from the why to the what. Now, the real genius of this source material, how it takes all these huge spiritual ideas and synthesizes them into a single, simple, repeatable daily system. This is where it gets really practical.
This is where we get the action plan. This is what the source calls the daily dose of divine fire.
All right, this is the part everyone's been waiting for. This is the actionable roadmap. The guide takes away all the guesswork and just gives you a clear 5-step path. If you want to integrate this divine inspiration into your actual messy daily life, you follow these 5 pillars every day.
And this is how all that spiritual insight we've been talking about gets translated into a repeatable action. The structure is designed specifically to anchor your day before the chaos hits.
Before the phone notifications start their assault.
Long before. So pillar number 1 is simple. Open the Word. That's the starting line. You have to find a specific promise. The Word is the factual basis for everything else. It's the blueprint. It's divine fact.
Then comes the step that makes it real. Pillar number 2, pray the Word.
This is where the fact becomes functional. You take that promise you just read about peace or strength or provision, whatever it is, and you turn it into a personal prayer, a declaration.
You're shifting it from the page into your mouth.
Exactly. And in doing so, you activate it as your personal power source. This is the ultimate anti-scroll activity. It focuses all your energy outward, toward the true source of power, instead of inward on your anxieties.
Okay, that brings us to pillar number 3, hold to his hand.
This connects directly back to Moses and Joshua. This is your commitment right now for this day to obey, even if the action required feels hard or strange or illogical.
Can you give us a practical example of that?
Sure. Let's say the promise you're standing on is about God's provision. Holding to his hand might mean making the financially difficult choice to be generous with your time or money, even when your bank account is screaming at you to hoard everything.
So it's an act of faith that goes against your logical fear.
It's the commitment to obedience when you can only see the next step, not the whole staircase. Another example. If the promise is peace, like Psalm 30, holding his calm, his hand might mean actively turning off the 24-hour news cycle and just being still for 5 minutes, instead of frantically scrolling for more information to fuel your anxiety.
I see. It's the action that proves you believe the promise. Okay, pillar number 4, stay connected.
This is Jacob's ladder. It's about maintaining a conscious awareness throughout your day of your link to heaven. The source says inspiration is a download, not an upload you have to create.
So you have to keep the channel open.
You have to prioritize moments to listen. It could be silence on your commute, a moment of reflection at lunch. It's about maintaining that connection.
And finally, pillar number 5. This one's my favorite.
It's the Elisha principle. Ask for more. Bold hunger. Every single day, you ask for a double portion of what you need for the challenges ahead.
So if you have a really stressful day at work coming up,
You ask for double patience, double wisdom, double capacity to handle it. The point is to stop settling for the spiritual minimum wage. Pursue abundance.
this pattern, it really feels like it's designed to build a kind of spiritual muscle memory.
That's the goal.
You start every morning anchored in a promise, you activate it with prayer, you commit to obedience, you remember where your power comes from, and you boldly ask for what you need. It's like a complete system for spiritual hygiene.
And before the guide lays out the final challenge, it gives us one more essential declaration, a foundational confession of strength that really underpins this whole thing. It comes from Psalm 28, verse 7.
And the verse itself is so direct. It says, "The Lord is my strength and my shield."
But it's the confession that follows that is so critical, because it completely flips the script on the whole self-help world, which is always telling you, you are strong enough, you got this.
This system says the opposite.
This system insists that you confess, you know what? I am not strong enough. My personal strength is finite. It runs out. But you, God, are unlimited.
So God himself becomes the specific strength you need for the daily grind.
Exactly. He's the strength to just get out of bed when you're feeling depressed. The strength to walk into that meeting you're dreading. The strength to forgive that person again. The strength to just keep going when you really want to quit.
It makes this massive theological concept, God's omnipotence, directly applicable to the most mundane, difficult, human moments of our day.
It connects the highest heaven to the hardest earth, just like Jacob's ladder.
Okay, we have the system, we have the 5 pillars, we have the foundational mindset. So the source finishes by giving the listener a very concrete, no excuses allowed task to put this all into practice immediately.
Right. This is the 21-day double portion challenge.
And I love this because it's designed to go head to head with our worst modern habit.
The first thing you do when you wake up, grab your phone.
Exactly. This is a 21-day intervention to break that cycle of digital dust and establish a new life-giving habit. And naming it after Elisha's bold ask, it encourages you to go into it with high expectations.
The instructions couldn't be simpler. It's 4 steps, and they're designed to be done before the day's chaos can get its hands on you.
Step 1.
Every morning, before you check your phone, before email, before a single notification, you open your Bible to just one verse. That's it, one promise.
Step 2. You write the verse down.
And the source says the physical act of writing it is so important. It takes it from just being a fleeting thought and makes it a concrete commitment for your day.
Step 3. Pray it back to God. You declare it. You turn it into your power source for the day ahead.
And the final step, step 4. You go about your day, but you do it with the conscious intention of holding on to his unchanging hand, committing to whatever obedience is required for that specific day.
You establish this daily pattern and then you just watch. You see what impossible walls fall down flat and what promised joy actually shows up in your morning. #tag outro. So this deep dive has really shown us that true, sustainable, inexhaustible inspiration, it's not found by searching harder or scrolling longer.
Or in some new self-help hack.
No. It's found in a disciplined daily application of ancient promises. It's about moving from being a passive reader to an active, bold declarer. And a committed, if sometimes confused, obeyer.
We've spent our time here extracting a blueprint for divine power. It's a whole system, and it's anchored in that incredible promise from Psalm 30, that weeping is only a temporary visitor. It doesn't get to own the house.
We laid out the pillars. Declare the word, obey the strategy, maintain the connection.
And always, always hunger for the double portion.
The challenge now is simply application. You have the system, you have the 5 pillars, you have the 21-day challenge. This whole thing is designed specifically to help you overcome those massive barriers, those Red Seas and walls of Jericho in your life that just seem completely impossible.
They seem impenetrable to our own human strength.
So we want to leave you with a final thought to take with you based on everything we've talked about from the source. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. So the question is, which wall in your life, that financial crisis, that broken relationship, that health scare that keeps you up at night, which wall will you start marching around tomorrow morning?
What is the one verse you're going to open to, write down, and declare over your life before your fingers even touch your phone?
Go in peace and go in power and go inspired.
Knowing your strength comes from a source that will never, ever run dry.
We'll see you on the next Deep Dive.